This is the Francis Scott Key Bridge, or at least what's currently left of it. More than a year and a half after one of the most dramatic and widely publicized infrastructure disasters of the last decade, many are now asking, what's going on? Today, I'm standing near the Patapsco River, where the bridge once carried I-695, now the center of one of the largest marine construction projects in Maryland's history. With the cleanup phase complete, crews are shifting to full demolition and early foundation work for a brand new 2-mile cable-stayed bridge, Maryland's first of its kind. It's an almost $2 billion effort, backed by federal emergency funds and complex legal recoveries from the vessel's owners and insurers. Today we talk about everything surrounding the colossal effort to demolish and rebuild one of the most consequential bridges in the country. So what exactly will the new bridge look like? Maryland unveiled the replacement design in February 2025, a modern cable-stayed bridge. Some of the specs include two 12-foot lanes each way, with 10-foot outside and 4-foot inside shoulders per direction, more than 2 miles total length, and 230-foot minimum vertical clearance over the federal channel. In terms of the towers, they'll be over 600 feet tall and spaced over 1,600 feet apart. They'll support a cable-stayed portion exceeding 3,300 feet, and all of it will have a 100-year design life. Based on months of field investigations and engineering analysis, the bridge alignment is slightly east or downriver of the original structure. That's a 300+ foot wider shipping channel with 45 more feet of vertical clearance as compared to the previous bridge. But it can be hard to picture just how massive this bridge will be, both in physical scale and in what it could represent for Maryland. With the towers rising over 600 feet and the total length of about 2 miles, the new Key Bridge will stand taller than any building in Baltimore and become the state's second longest bridge. It'll visually dwarf the low-slung 1970s truss it replaces and belong in the same conversation as notable East Coast spans like Charleston's Ravenel Bridge, Jacksonville's Dames Point, and New York's George Washington Bridge. It'll also rival the Chesapeake Bay Bridge's signature suspended span while offering a vertical window on par with, and in some respects greater than, the Golden Gates. It's poised to become one of, if not the most recognizable symbol associated with Baltimore for decades. Pretty exciting stuff for locals. Before the collapse, the Key Bridge carried roughly 12 to 13 million vehicles per year, or about 34,000 vehicles per day in 2023, with around 10% heavy commercial traffic that can't use the harbor tunnels due to hazardous material rules. One of the common questions about the design is why not increase lane capacity if you're building an entirely new bridge? Well, keeping the bridge at 4 lanes lets the state rebuild faster and stay inside the existing right-of-way. That triggers a quicker federal review, in this case an NEPA categorical exclusion, and avoids years of added design and permitting to widen interchanges, approaches, and in-water work. If they'd added lanes, the footprint, cost, and timeline would all grow, likely pushing the opening back by years. Instead, the new bridge is attempting to improve how the traffic actually moves, specifically with those wider shoulders I mentioned a minute ago. But what about the type of bridge that was chosen? 3 engineering drivers explain why a cable-stayed bridge was chosen instead of a steel truss like the previous bridge. The first is ship strike risk and in-water footprint. A cable-stayed solution achieves a much longer main span with fewer in-water supports than a truss of similar capacity, placing primary pylons farther from the navigation channel and allowing robust collision protection at fewer locations. The new bridge is being designed under what's called the AASHTO Guide Specifications for Vessel Collision Design, which don't guess at an unlimited worst case. They make you pick a design vessel that matches real traffic based on size, weight, speed, and likely approach angles. From there, the designer calculates the impact energy and then sizes the pier protection and substructure so the annual probability of collapse stays below a strict target. That target is on the order of 10 to the -4 per year for critical bridges, or about a 1 in 10,000 annual probability of collapse due to vessel collision. Before the collapse, federal investigators estimated the old bridge's collision risk was roughly 30 times above that threshold. The second reason is clearance in geometry. The bridge will be able to accommodate larger vessels and wider tug escorts. Cable-stayed geometry scales well to these spans while maintaining stiffness and aerodynamic stability without the deep superstructure typical of long trusses. Third, constructability under schedule pressure. Cable-stayed construction, with pylons and balanced cantilever deck segments, fits progressive work packaging and off-site fabrication. This bridge, and more specifically the accident, has had a major impact on existing bridges and future bridge design across the country. In March of 2025, the NTSB urged owners of 68 bridges in 19 states to perform vessel collision vulnerability assessments. States like Florida publicly reviewed risk at major spans such such as the Dames Point Bridge I mentioned a few moments ago. But the changes aren't limited to bridges, so what's happening on the ship side? The NTSB's preliminary report on the Dali documented multiple electrical blackouts minutes before impact, which put attention on protection settings and switchboard reliability. In response, the US Coast Guard issued a safety alert directing crews to know and drill electrical plant restoration. ABS published a technical advisory on blackout awareness with checks for load shedding and recovery, and DNV released guidance on causes, prevention, and effective recovery testing. Switching gears a bit, where's all the money coming from to build this? Maryland estimates the rebuild cost at somewhere between 1.7 and 1.9 billion. The US Department of Transportation released 60 million in federal emergency relief funds as a down payment, with more relief funding to follow as work advances. Separately, the Maryland Department of Transportation received an initial $350 million insurance payment from Chubb on the bridge's property policy. The Highway Administration says it's coordinating with Maryland, so insurance proceeds reduce the net public cost while keeping delivery efficient. The capital program is typically financed by toll revenues and toll revenue bonds, which can be used to bridge timing gaps. To summarize, in case all that makes no sense, federal taxpayers will cover the bulk through emergency relief. Insurance and the toll program reduce what's ultimately needed. In October of 2024, the Department of Justice settled its federal cost recovery case against the Dali's owner for $103 million. That money reimburses federal costs as it goes to the US Treasury and affected agencies, not directly to Maryland's construction account. It's important to note that Baltimore City and the state of Maryland have separate claims against the ship interests. And although the ship owner filed a limitation of liability action, a federal judge has set a 2026 schedule for key proceedings. Any future recoveries are expected to offset public spending. Now let's quickly talk about the timeline and what's to come. The bridge collapsed on March 26 of 2024. In May, salvors refloated the Dali and moved it from beneath the collapsed span, clearing way for final debris removal. By June, the US Army Corps of Engineers reopened the Fort McHenry Federal Channel, restoring normal deep draft access to the Port of Baltimore. Since then, work shifted from emergency salvage to program setup. The MDTA selected Kiewit for a progressive design build contract in August 2024 to take the new bridge from concept through construction. Maryland issued key state approvals in December, and in March 2025, the Army Corps of Engineers officially issued its permit authorizing construction. Demolition of the remaining pieces of the old bridge began in July. As of September, you could see crews are both removing the former bridge's deck and dismantling the roadway sections over Hawkins Point. The test pile program, which is now on site, is the proof step for the main tower foundation. Starting in late September, crews will drive about a dozen instrumented 8-foot diameter, 220-foot long steel piles and then load test them with a barge-mounted frame. The data gathered locks the final pile sizes and lengths and cuts risk before ordering hundreds of production piles. In just a few short months, what's now an active demolition site will give way to one of the most ambitious bridge construction efforts in US history. Taller, stronger, safer, and engineered for the next century of maritime and vehicular traffic. And while the tragedy that brought us here won't be forgotten, the structure rising in its place may come to symbolize something far bigger. A new chapter for Baltimore and a new standard for American bridge design. At Buildcore, we're building America, one story at a time. We cover some of the most impressive and headline-grabbing projects and topics across this great country. And with your help, the channel has grown to over 50,000 subscribers and reached over 10 million people. With that being said, thank you, and I'll see you next time.